Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. If you want to join me in getting revenge against the YouTube algorithm, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Less Storage. Store would not accept returned clothes, so I shredded them. I'm an avid hiker. While visiting a town, I bought some new boots from the only store in town that sells hiking boots. Being late in the afternoon, I didn't try them on first, I just grabbed my size. It was near closing time and I didn't want to keep the staff waiting for me to linger around buying stuff when they wanted to close and go home. When I got to the trailhead, I discovered the boots were way too small, so I put them back in my car and did my hike with my old boots. I had bought this brand previously and picked the size I bought last time. Since originally buying that brand, it appears they switched manufacturing in the US to China and had completely resized their range. The next day I took them back, but the store owner refused to swap them for a larger size, saying I'd worn them. I explained that this was impossible as my foot is literally an inch longer than the shoe. I'm 99% sure his attitude was based on my age and race. Not interested in fighting about it, I gave up and told him to throw the shoes in the rubbish as they're no use to me. As I turned around, I saw him move some stock on the shelf aside, then get out a price gun to put a tag on them. I said to stop. I took out my very sharp pocket knife and cut the tongues out and slashed up the leather. We wouldn't want you to accidentally sell secondhand used shoes by mistake now, would we? The guy was furious about it, but he can suck it as far as I care. I usually would have donated them to the homeless, and my actions were not only petty and spiteful, but restrained. Unrestrained me would have loved to take him outside and use the boots to give him an attitude adjustment, but I decided that making it impossible for him to rip off someone else too was enough. Honestly, for all we know, with an owner that operates like that, maybe they were already returned boots or loose boots or something they put in a bigger size box because that's just what they had lying around. It's probably the manufacturing change, but how would you know coming from an owner that operated like that? Our next story is by Dismal Dirt 9859. X demands I return gifts, I make him pay up. This happened back in 2015. My boyfriend at the time and I didn't work out. At the time, I suffered a miscarriage at 5 months, and a month after, he set his mom on me to break up with me. Long A story. I went into a mental health hospital for about 2 weeks to deal with the depression and loss. My nephew at the time was a toddling toddler, and my ex coddled him. Here's where we begin. After I get out of the hospital, I noticed I had text from him where he demanded to be reimbursed for all the money he spent on my nephew. Bottles, diapers, playground fees, clothes. He added up any and all purchases he made for nephew. I laughed and told him that no one asked him to pay for any of that, and how could he ask that from a baby? I made him buy back all of his games and systems that he left behind. PS3 with 4 controllers and 60 plus games? I'd already tried selling, but the pawn shop only offered $60. I made that jerk pay $240 for his precious games. The best part? Mama had to shell it out for Mama's boy. For extra clarity, OP adds that they lived 2 hours away. The day they broke up was the day he went to get his things. And then apparently the ex clarified that he agreed to leave his games behind to cover the rent. Apparently he purchased it all back because the save data was like gold to him. So that kind of downplays any questions of whether or not there's like a moral background to selling back his stuff. I guess OP already possessed it because of the rent thing. Our next story is by Little Miss Bunny Woman, Dirty, Dirty Little Lunch Thief. This took place when I was still a teen fresh out of university, working directly under an engineer. The office I was doing my 4,000 hours in was fairly large, 5 floors of a large office building, a Toronto construction firm. Well, I was lazy and always picked up a lunch from Whole Foods, usually sushi on my way to work. My floor had its own break room and fridge, and for the first 6 months, nothing ever went missing until we got a batch of university office interns in. Then, wouldn't you know, lunches would go missing, and it wasn't just mine. Any lunch in-store packaging was gone, if there was a name on it or not. Well, after 2 weeks of our lunches just walking away, we were all getting upset. Don't mess with my salmon sashimi. One of the engineers comes up with an idea and asks everyone to throw in a couple of dollars to solve this problem. The following week, he sends a text to the store-bought lunch people to meet in the break room before work, and sent a text to everyone in the office to not touch any of the packaged lunches. We meet up, and he hands us this little spray bottle to spray the packaging. It was this black light reactive spray. glows from a black light, but completely undetectable. Lunch rolls around and guess what? Every single packaged lunch is gone. And this guy brings out a black light and starts looking for fingerprints. He finds them on the door down the hall to the elevator. Now imagine 5 of the super nerdy engineers you have ever seen going down a hallway with a black light like something from a discount CSI. Well, there's fingerprints everywhere right up to the elevator on the buttons down to the second floor. Down the hallway at this time, I figure some of the interns are nicking our lunches, but I was wrong. We followed it right to the head of the sales department's desk. And well, we demand to see his hands. They were freaking glowing like crazy. Not to mention he had touched his face, so there was a glowing mess covering his face. The guy knew he was caught, and we made an agreement not to go to HR, but to get a picture and pizza for our floor every Friday for 2 months. We stayed extra that day to print out the glowing mess that was his face, and we printed at least 100 of them with the caption, "Dirty, dirty lunch thief." Those darn things went up everywhere. The bathrooms, all the entryways of the building, every office door and desk in sight. Needless to say, the lunches stopped going missing, and I was able to eat my sushi in peace. I must admit, there's some parts of this story that seem a little bit extra, I would say. Like, how good is this black light substance that it's on the walls going down the hallway, the elevator button, all over their hands and all over their face? The substance stayed in a state where it was good enough to get all over their hands, completely cake their face, and pop up all over the hallway on the way to their office from simple hand touches? And then why would the guy agree to not go to HR and buy pizzas and then you plaster his messed up face all over the place? I feel like that's a bit of a deal breaker, and I feel like HR would want to get involved at that point. Maybe I'm thinking too far into it, I don't know. Our next story is by Victoria Euphoria 99. Taxi driver is a butt, gets stranded. It's been a few months now, so I doubt he'll be able to track me down. I was leaving Walmart after getting a few things, and I started to cross the road out front. There's even a sign that says yield to pedestrians. Apparently I was taking too long because this taxi comes speeding up and has a brake to not hit me. I won't say I crossed at a perfect 90-degree angle to the road, but it was easily over 75 degrees, not like I was walking down the road like some people do. So he drives up fast, slams on the brakes, and while I'm still startled, he lays on the horn. I get it together, slam my fist down on his hood and flip him off. Probably not the best quick decision, but still. This idiot gets out of his car and starts walking towards me. I'm a little scared at this point, so I walk around the passenger side of his car away from him. Now the good part, when I get to the driver's side, the door is open and it's running. I lock the doors and close the driver door. The look on his face when he realized he was locked out. Instead of going to my car, I go back into Walmart and walk towards a security guard standing in front of the store. I tell him what's going on as the cab driver just goes back outside. The security guard busts out laughing. He escorted me out the other door to my car, and he was still parked there. I don't think he saw me. I drove to the far end of the parking lot and watched him stand there like an idiot. It looked like someone finally let him use their phone. I left after like 10 minutes of watching. I so wanted to drive by and blow a kiss or something, but he would have seen my car and plate. I think in this situation, it's just great that when you were facing an issue with the taxi driver, you could go back into Walmart, go up to the security guard, and the security guard was willing to stop and help you. I mean, bottom line, I guess that is what they're there for, but it's just kind of reassuring to know that in that situation, you come in from outside, they're willing to just stop, help, and escort you. Our next story is by Jello and Sunshine. A simple way I get petty revenge on jerk customers. There is literally no way for me to get in trouble. This is super small and they probably don't even notice, but it's enough to put a smile on my smug face. I work at a grocery store as a cashier, and naturally come in contact with plenty of interesting people. So because I'm a petty witch and feel the need to take some sort of revenge, I came up with this. This is something you probably do too, and I promise it's literally impossible to get in trouble. So basically, if a customer's being a real pain in the butt and they happen to pay in cash, I'll go out of my way to give them dirty change. Not just dirty, but the crustiest, most chipped and ugly coins I can possibly find. And I hand them this disgusting mess of coins and bills that look like they passed through an animal. They don't particularly notice because it's just how money is. And sure, maybe they did notice, but what are they supposed to complain about? I gave them their money. Excuse me, she gave me dirty money. Money's dirty, what do you expect? It's enough that I can have a small feeling of justice and small enough that I can get away with it for the rest of my life. So next time a customer's a jerk to you, give them the most disgusting and vile change you can find. For some reason, this entire story, I couldn't help but think about a comedy skit from the Upright Citizens Brigade entitled, and I'm obviously making it a little bit more correct, Butt Pennies? If you haven't seen it and you guys want to laugh, that's a pretty funny video. This next story is by DWRK92, Front of the Queue, Still Made to Wait. My parents had arrived back from a holiday and were waiting in the queue for passport control. A group of young males had also left that flight and joined the same queue. They were quite rowdy and shouting at the staff to let them through first. Eventually, the staff got sick and put them through to the front. They cheered at their victory and went through passport control. The conveyor belt started for baggage reclaim. My parents were unfortunate that they had to wait a long time for their bags, but so did the lads. My parents finally got their bags, loaded them onto a trolley, and went to leave the airport. The last thing they saw was the lads still waiting at an almost empty conveyor belt. Clearly, the staff got the information from the passports and held their bags. I'd love to believe that the staff was like, screw these guys, we're gonna hold their bags, we're gonna hold them up, we'll teach them about patiently waiting. And our final story of the day is by On-Road Sup Boop, The Unwilling Messenger. In college, I used to work as a teacher in a daycare that wasn't great in terms of management. Oftentimes, they aren't. My manager in particular was pretty bad. She had a militant, strict rule that teachers were not to communicate with the parents if she wasn't present. No phone numbers were ever to be shared with a parent. If we had an issue, we were to tell her, and she would inform the parents. Failure to comply would be met with termination. Obviously, every teacher broke this rule. You need to talk with the parents about kids for their own peace of mind, as well as to problem-solve behavioral issues and let them know that their kids need certain items or let them know your concerns. We never spoke about it. Anyway, boss lady had it out for me. I really did try my best, but she gave me $0 for a supply budget, made things as simple as getting someone to watch the kids while I took one down the hall for restroom not possible, and refused to report abuse or behavioral disorder symptoms. Once COVID started, the chaotic and fun world of daycare became a nightmare. All of my 3-year-old students were given to the preschool teacher due to low attendance in her class, and I was given the school-age students, 12 kids ages 5 to 10. About 75% of them had Zoom meetings all day for their classes, the other didn't. It was a nightmare trying to keep a single room, about 15 by 30, with all of them. It has to be dead quiet for the ones in class to focus, but also somehow fun enough to keep the ones not in class occupied enough to stay quiet. Oh, and all the classes were at different time slots, and we were only allowed to leave the room for lunch and outside time about an hour a day. Despite this, I managed. All of my students were at the top of their classes and got high marks. The parents and I would slip each other notes and they would let me know how happy they were to see how I kept their kids' schoolwork organized, how I taught even the 5-year-olds to access their computers and get on Zoom meetings unassisted. I made the links bookmarked in Chrome and used emojis for each class, paired with an on-screen alarm that would let them know it was time to click on that class, etc., etc. I decided to quit due to a better job opportunity, and I couldn't take the boss treating my kids so poorly and calling us out for mistakes in a weekly notice that was distributed staff-wide. Like, Miss X did this, it caused this problem, don't be like her. The final straw was when a parent was emailing her and to pass along their praise for me teaching their son how to use a computer. She accused me of somehow asking them to say it in the newsletter, stating to everyone that staff shouldn't ask parents to praise us to her, as it was manipulation. I did no such thing, who the freak would do that? They were understandably upset because, I hung around with them all day and cared for them and stuff. A few of them told their parents, and suddenly I was getting secret notes asking when I was leaving, whether I liked chocolate, etc. They weren't allowed in the building due to the pandemic, so all we had were notes and the occasional secret conversations at the fence on the playground. I didn't give a freak about my boss's rule and let every student know that I would miss them, and gave each of them a going-away present from the dollar store. The revenge came on my last day when so many parents stopped by with gift cards, candy, thank you notes, and drawings. and my poor boss had to walk them down to me in my classroom, one by one, pandemic rules. She got madder each time that she had to act so happy to see them praising me and bringing me their gifts one by one. Her parting words to me were good luck in my endeavors and that I was never welcome back. I still have some of their drawings and cards from the parents. I hope all of my students are doing okay. I miss the little poops. I hope they remember me. I hope my ex-boss remembers the walks of shame. With a disgust for anybody getting praise and a putrid attitude like that, I'm more than sure that moment of that walk of shame over and over lives rent-free in the ex-boss's head. From the way they're acting, I bet OP is that catalyst to make sure nobody ever gets that kind of praise again for some reason. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.